In the dim glow of a roadside diner just off Interstate 40 in the heart of Arizona's dusty Badlands, the air hung thick with the scent of greasy fries and stale coffee. The place was called Ma's Pit Stop, a relic from the 1950s with faded red booths and a jukebox that hadn't worked since Reagan was in office. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over a fleet of Harley-Davidsons parked in a tight formation, their chrome gleaming like knives under the fading light. Inside, the Disciples Motorcycle Club had taken over, their leather vests emblazoned with the club's insignia, a snarling wolf encircled by thorns, demanding respect from anyone who dared glance their way. Rocco, the bear, Malone stood at the center of it all, his broad frame casting a shadow over the trembling woman on her knees before him. At 58, Rocco's face was a map of scars and regrets, his gray beard streaked with the remnants of a life spent on the edge. Tattoos snaked up his arms, telling stories of prison stints, lost brothers, and unbreakable oaths. The one on his neck, a faded cross with the words, "Ride or Die," peeked out from under his collar, a reminder of the code that bound them all. His eyes, cold and unyielding, fixed on Elena Vargas, the woman who'd once been his everything and now kneeled in desperation, her floral dress stained with dirt and the swell of her belly prominent under the harsh fluorescent lights. Elena clutched her hands together, tears streaming down her cheeks, mixing with the blood trickling from a fresh cut on her forehead. Her dark hair fell in disheveled waves, and her voice cracked as she whispered pleas that echoed in the silent diner. "Please, Rocco, for the baby. Don't do this. I didn't mean to betray you. It was a mistake." Her words hung in the air, fragile against the wall of stoic faces surrounding her. The Disciples, 15 strong, their vests patched with "Boylan Chapter" on the top rocker, stood in a semicircle, arms crossed, expressions carved from stone. They were a brotherhood forged in the fires of loyalty, violence, and the open road, and tonight, that bond was being tested. It had started months ago, back in the club's compound in Boylan, a small town nestled in the shadow of the Superstition Mountains. Elena had come into Rocco's life like a desert storm, fierce, unpredictable, and leaving everything changed in her wake. She was 28, a former waitress from Phoenix with dreams bigger than the cage she felt trapped in. Rocco, the club's president, had spotted her at a rally, her laughter cutting through the roar of engines like a siren's call. He'd claimed her as his old lady, tattooing his mark on her wrist, a small wolf that now burned under the circle of dried blood where she'd scratched at it in panic. But loyalty in the Disciples wasn't just a word, it was blood. Elena had crossed the line when she started talking to the feds. Whispers reached Rocco through a snitch in the rival Vipers gang. Elena had been seen meeting with an undercover agent in a motel on the outskirts of Tucson. She claimed it was about her brother, locked up on drug charges, trying to cut a deal for his release. But Rocco knew better. The club was deep in gun-running ops, smuggling AKs and Glocks across the border to cartels hungry for firepower. Any leak could bring down the whole operation, and with it, the lives of every brother in the room. "Stand up, Elena," Rocco growled, his voice low and gravelly, like tires on loose gravel. He didn't touch her, but his presence was enough to make her flinch. The diner owner, a wiry old man named Hank, cowered behind the counter, pretending to wipe down the same spot for the 10th time. He'd seen enough club business to know when to look away. Elena shook her head, her hands pressing against her abdomen as if to shield the unborn child from the storm brewing around them. "I swear, Rocco, it wasn't about the club. My brother, he's dying in there. I just wanted to help him." Her voice rose, desperate, but the men around her didn't budge. Tommy, Ghost, Ramirez, Rocco's sergeant-at-arms, shifted his weight, his bearded face impassive. He'd lost a finger in a bar fight defending the club's honor, and his loyalty to Rocco was ironclad. Beside him, Jax, Kid, Harlan, the youngest at 24, clenched his fists, his tattoos fresh and vibrant compared to the faded ink of the veterans. The scene had unfolded like a bad dream. They'd dragged Elena from her apartment in Phoenix that morning, blindfolding her and tossing her into the back of a van. No rough stuff, not yet, but the message was clear. The ride to the diner had been silent, save for the hum of the highway and Elena's muffled sobs. Now, here they were, in this godforsaken pit stop, deciding her fate. Rocco knelt down slowly, his knees cracking from years of hard riding. He reached out, his calloused fingers brushing her chin, forcing her to look up. "You think I don't know what betrayal looks like?" I've buried brothers because of rats like you. His words were laced with pain, a flicker of the man who'd whispered promises to her under starlit skies. But the club came first. Always. Behind them, the door jingled as another disciple entered, Big Mike, the enforcer, his massive frame blocking the exit. He'd been scouting the perimeter, ensuring no tales from the law. All clear, Prez, he rumbled, his eyes scanning the room. The diners, a trucker nursing a beer and a family of tourists who'd picked the wrong stop, had long since fled, leaving half-eaten plates and unpaid bills. Alina's mind raced back to how it all began. She'd met Rocco at the annual Sturgis rally, the mecca for bikers from coast to coast. The air had been alive with the thunder of engines, the smell of leather and exhaust mingling with barbecue smoke. Rocco had pulled her onto his bike, the wind whipping through her hair as they rode into the Black Hills. For a while, it was paradise, nights in cheap motels, days on the open road, the club's camaraderie wrapping around her like a warm blanket. But the underbelly revealed itself slowly. The late-night deals in abandoned warehouses, the bloodied knuckles after, club business, the constant paranoia of raids. When she found out she was pregnant, everything shifted. Rocco had been over the moon at first, talking about a legacy, a son to carry on the name. But then the doubts crept in. Her brother's arrest for meth distribution, club-related, though Rocco denied it, pushed her over the edge. She contacted the DIA anonymously, hoping to trade info for leniency. Stupid, she knew now. The agent had promised protection, but here she was, on her knees in a diner, surrounded by the very men she'd tried to escape. Please, she begged again, her voice breaking. The baby, our baby. Think about that. Rocco's face softened for a split second, but he stood up abruptly, turning to his brothers. What say you? He asked, his voice steady. The disciples murmured among themselves. Ghost stepped forward first. She's a liability, Prez. Cut her loose, but make sure she don't talk. Jax nodded reluctantly. Yeah, but the kid, that's blood. Big Mike grunted. Blood don't mean shit if it's tainted. The debate hung heavy, the diner's clock ticking like a bomb. Alina's heart pounded, her hands still clasped in prayer. She glanced around, noting the details, the red arrow someone had scribbled on a napkin pointing to the exit, the circle of booths like a noose. Outside, the desert stretched endless, a place where bodies disappeared without a trace. Rocco paced, his boots thudding on the linoleum. Memories flooded him. Alina's laughter at a bonfire in the compound, her hand in his during a run through the Mojave. But trust was the club's foundation. Without it, they were just a bunch of outlaws waiting to fall. Finally, he stopped, facing her. You get one chance. You leave tonight, go east, never look back. No contact, no nothing. And if I hear even a whisper. He let the threat hang. Alina's relief was palpable, but tempered with fear. I promise. Thank you, Rocco. He helped her up, his touch gentle despite everything. The brothers parted, watching as she gathered herself. But as she turned to leave, Ghost blocked her path. Wait, we need insurance. What followed was a ritual as old as the club itself. They sat her down in a booth, Rocco sliding in beside her. Big Mike produced a knife, its blade glinting. Your mark, Rocco said. We remove it. Alina's eyes widened. The wolf tattoo on her wrist, the symbol of her belonging. She nodded, biting her lip as the blade pressed against her skin. The pain was sharp, but she endured, blood welling up as they carved it away. A crude bandage followed, wrapped tight. Go, Rocco said, his voice hoarse. And remember, the disciples don't forget. She stumbled out into the night, the cool desert air hitting her like freedom. The bikes roared to life behind her, but she didn't look back. Hitchhiking to the nearest town, her mind whirled with plans. Head to Chicago, start over, protect the child. Back in the diner, Rocco sat alone, staring at the bloodied napkin. The brothers dispersed, mounting their Harleys for the ride home. Doubt not at him. Had he been too soft? The club murmured approvals, but he knew the road ahead was fraught. Days turned to weeks. Elena made it to a women's shelter in Albuquerque, her belly growing as she pieced together a new life. She waitressed under a fake name, saving every penny. But the scars remained, the physical one on her wrist, and the deeper ones in her soul. Rocco, meanwhile, dove deeper into club business. A big shipment from Mexico was coming through, Alaska 47s hidden in truckloads of produce. The Vipers were sniffing around, smelling weakness after the Elena incident. A skirmish broke out in a bar in Flagstaff, leaving 2 disciples hospitalized and 1 Viper dead. Word reached Rocco that Elena had been spotted in New Mexico. He sent Jax to check, the kid returning with news: she was keeping quiet, laying low. Relief washed over him, but so did regret. The baby, his blood, haunted his dreams. One night, as the club gathered in their Boylan clubhouse, a fortified warehouse with pool tables and a bar, Rocco called a meeting. "Brothers, we've got heat. Feds are circling closer. That rat business ain't over." Ghost nodded. "Elena's gone, but maybe she left breadcrumbs." Debate raged. Some wanted to hunt her down, tie up loose ends. Others argued for focus on the shipment. Rocco slammed his fist. "Enough. She's out. We move forward." But fate had other plans. A week later, during the run, everything went south. Ambushed at a rest stop near the border, bullets flew as Vipers and undercover agents swarmed. Rocco took a hit to the shoulder, blood soaking his vest. In the chaos, he thought of Elena, the child, the life he could have had. Surviving brothers regrouped, licking wounds. Rocco, bandaged and bitter, realized the leak hadn't been Elena, it was an inside job. Big Mike, tempted by Viper bribes, had sold them out. Confrontation came swift. In the same diner where Elena had begged, they cornered Mike. No pleas this time, just justice, club style. A single shot echoed, body dumped in the desert. Rocco rode alone that night, wind whipping his face. He headed east, toward Albuquerque, drawn by an invisible thread. Finding the shelter, he watched from afar as Elena stepped out, her hand on her belly, a small smile on her face. He didn't approach. Instead, he left an envelope, cash, enough for a fresh start, and rode away, the roar of his engine drowning out the what-ifs. Months passed. Elena gave birth to a boy, naming him Alex, after her brother. She moved to Denver, building a life far from leather and chrome. Rocco patched things with the club, the shipment rerouted successfully. But a piece of him was gone, lost in that diner plea. Years later, on a rainy night in Boylan, a young man knocked on the clubhouse door. Tall, with Rocco's eyes and Elena's fire. "I'm Alex," he said. "Heard this is where my old man hangs." The cycle continued, the road endless, binding them in ways blood alone couldn't break.